Discover how a humiliated street boy inspired a CEO's silent daughter to speak for the first time. In the heart of a bustling neighborhood, two worlds collided. On one side, there was Alex, a scrappy street boy who wore his resilience like armor. Each day was a battle against hunger and the scorn of the society that often overlooked kids like him. He moved through the urban jungle, dodging local gangs and the harsh judgments of onlookers. Alex foraged for scraps, piecing together a meal from what the world discarded, and yet in his eyes flickered a spirit that refused to be crushed. Just a few blocks away, Samantha, the daughter of a wealthy CEO, existed in a carefully maintained bubble. Her wealth and privilege had shielded her from the harsh realities of the world, but they came with invisible chains. Expectations had molded her into a perfectionist, but deep inside, she was struggling with a learning disability that simmered beneath her polished surface. The walls around her were adorned with trophies and accolades, trophies that felt like shackles when the pressure grew too heavy. One sweltering afternoon, fate twisted their paths. Alex spotted an elderly veteran struggling with his grocery bags, and without a second thought, he rushed to help. "Here, let me get those for you," he said, a genuine smile breaking through his grime. That simple act of kindness reverberated through the vibrant streets, catching the attention of Samantha, who sat in a nearby cafe with her friends. "Look at him," one of her friends sneered, rolling her eyes. "He's South, just another street rat." Samantha felt a rush of disbelief. What she witnessed was not just a display of physical strength, but an embodiment of honor. It ignited something in her, a yearning to find her own voice as she watched Alex defy the cruel expectations of society. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That moment marked the beginning of a shift. Samantha found herself grappling with fierce judgments from her affluent peers, and the pressures from her father mounted, demanding she keep distant from the less fortunate. Meanwhile, Alex faced the persistent hunger gnawing at his stomach, a reality that weighed heavily upon him as he searched for dignity in a world that offered him none. Desperate to reach out, Samantha gathered her courage to approach Alex. But her heart raced with fear. Would he see her as just another spoiled girl? Would she be met with judgment too? Their growing recognition of each other's struggles set the stage for transformation. Then came an explosive moment. A dispute between local gangs erupted nearby, shattering the false sense of safety. As chaos unfolded, both Alex and Samantha would need to confront their worlds head-on, and in doing so, discover that standing up for each other meant standing up for themselves. With hearts pounding, they had to decide, could they tear down the very prejudices that confined them and find solidarity in their shared fight for dignity? The chaos erupted like a thunderstorm. Shouts rang out, fingers pointed, and the air buzzed with the tension of the standoff. Alex instinctively ducked behind a nearby car, adrenaline flooding his body. He could feel the heat of panic wrapping around him, but his instinct to protect himself and others took over. Samantha's heart raced as she stood frozen, uncertainty cascading over her like a cold wave. Visibility blurred as chaos spilled into the streets. The booming voices of angry men filled the air, threatening the fragile safety of their neighborhood. In that moment of terror, she caught sight of Alex again, his body tense as he assessed the situation. Something stirred within her. She couldn't let fear keep her quiet. Not now. As the crowd swirled around them, she felt a pull toward him, a magnetic urge to bridge the gap that had always separated their worlds. But would he feel the same? In her belly, anxiety churned deeper than the tumult surrounding them. Swallowing hard, she moved forward, weaving through the throng, determination igniting with each step. This was her moment to break free from the expectations that shackled her. "Alex," she called out, her voice cutting through the noise like a knife. He turned, startled, his eyes wide with surprise. In that moment of recognition, a flicker of something powerful passed between them. The simplicity of her plea stirred something in him. "What are you doing here?" he shouted back, his voice tinged with urgency. "I'm not leaving you." She took a step closer, her gaze steady, matching his intensity. We can't let them tear us apart. The menacing voices grew louder. Alex could feel the heat of the conflict pressing against him, but there was something anchoring him Samantha's fierce declaration. He had always felt invisible, unworthy, but here she was, willing to face this chaos, attached to him through an invisible thread. Seconds ticked by like hours as the fight spilled over, closer now. You shouldn't be here, he said, concern etched in his expression. You're wrong. I need to be here. We both do. Her eyes shone, determination crystallizing in the midst of fear. She noticed the group of people that had gathered, forming lines. Faces were etched with skepticism and disbelief as they observed this unlikely connection. In that moment, standing together amidst the chaos, something began to shift. Slowly, a realization dawned on Alex. The chains that held him, the burdens he had carried alone, could lighten if he was willing to let someone else in. Their worlds weren't so separate anymore. They were two souls caught in the same storm. Just as Samantha reached for him, a sudden noise erupted, a terrifying crash. The sound invaded her thoughts, and for a moment, everything froze. People were retreating, a rush of bodies colliding, and in the clamoring descent back to safety, everything blurred into confusion. But in that chaos, something unshakable pulsated between Samantha and Alex, the heartbeats of shared courage igniting into a flame. Would this moment bring more than just an evasion of danger? Would they find strength together in the aftermath? As she clutched his hand tightly, they faced the thrumming chaos around them. It was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a moment that would change everything. With hearts pounding and breath shallow, they shared a single thought. This was just the beginning. But what awaited them, beyond the chaos, loomed larger than they both could imagine. Would they step fully into the light, or would fear pull them back into their shadows? The world around them felt like it was crumbling. Shouts turned into screams, bodies spilled toward the edges of the street, and the skyline turned to a hazy backdrop of chaos. Yet, in the midst of this storm, Alex and Samantha found themselves rooted together, their hands intertwined like a lifeline against the surging crowd. Stay close, Alex urged, his voice strained. He could feel Samantha's pulse racing through her palm. There was something electrifying in their touch, as though they shared an unspoken agreement to face the storm together. People were screaming and darting for safety while the confrontation escalated. He glanced around. His instincts kicked in. With a deep breath, he led them toward a nearby alleyway, hoping it would offer temporary refuge. Samantha followed, her gaze darting nervously, taking in the frantic scene unfolding behind them. Why do you really come here, Samantha? He managed to ask, trying to cut through the noise. Her eyes searched his, searching for the truth hidden beneath the tension. I came because she hesitated. The moment felt fragile, every heartbeat echoing the need for honesty. I wanted you to know you're not alone. I've seen what they do, and I'm tired of pretending it's okay. Alex studied her, her courage blooming even as the danger loomed. Just moments before, they stood worlds apart. Now, their hearts beat in tandem. You shouldn't be here, he said, though his heart whispered differently. There was a truth building between them, a shared acknowledgement of fear transformed into bravery. A loud crack interrupted him, and another wave of panic swept through the crowd. They're getting closer, Samantha cried, eyes wide, her grip tightening on his hand. Let us get out of here, he shouted over the din, pulling her toward a narrow gap amidst the throng. The alleyway beckoned, shadows promising shelter from the madness. As they stumbled through, the sounds of chaos softened, replaced by the echo of their footsteps on the pavement. They paused at the alley's end, taking a moment to catch their breath. Are you okay? He asked, genuinely concerned. She nodded, but her eyes betrayed her fear, and uncertainty simmered beneath the surface. I'm not sure what to do next, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. He turned to her, sensing this was a pivotal moment. What if we just keep moving forward? Together? The words poured out, fueled by the urgency pulsing between them. Would stepping out from behind the shadows of their own insecurities provide the clarity they both desperately needed? Together, she repeated, her voice gaining strength. But before they could decide their next step, a group of retreating figures stumbled into view, panic etched across their faces. They passed through, whispers spiraling around them, and one frantic woman barely brushed by Alex, grief-stricken and breathless. They are destroying everything. We have to unite, she cried before disappearing down the alley. Suddenly, a surge of inspiration hit Samantha like a wave. What if we bring people together? Not fight against each other, but find a way to heal this? Her words felt like a spark igniting something deep within him. It was a chance to transform fear into hope. You could lead them. We could help others find their voices, he suggested, excitement bubbling up in his chest. But doubt crept back into her eyes. What if they won't listen? What if I fail? Alex squeezed her hand, reassurance mingling with confidence. You've already taken the biggest step by being here. We can make them listen, but only if we stand strong together. No more silence. The alley felt different now. It was no longer just an escape. It was a battleground for their resolve. As they stood there, hearts racing, both realized the storm around them may have been just the beginning. It would take strength and unity to turn the tide. But would they gather the courage to confront the chaos head-on? Would they truly be the voices that rallied others who felt voiceless? With hearts set on a new path, they exchanged a determined glance. Together they took a deep breath, ready to step into the unknown. But as they turned to face the streets once more, a shadow loomed at the alley's edge, watching, and they weren't exactly alone after all. The shadow grew clearer as it approached, revealing a young man, ragged and wild-eyed, his clothes torn and smudged with dirt. He stopped just a few feet away, breathless, his wide gaze taking in the two wrapped in a moment of determination. Without missing a beat, he looked directly at Samantha. Are you really going to help? He asked, his voice laced with a mix of hope and doubt. Do you have what it takes? Because it feels like this whole city is on fire. Samantha felt the weight of his words settle deep. It was true. Chaos roared around them, and their mission seemed insurmountable. But something flickered in her chest, the promise of change. Yes, she replied instinctively, her voice steadier than she felt. We have to take a stand. We need to unite. The young man took a step closer, drawing Alex's protective instincts to the surface. You don't understand. They squash any voices that rise up. I've seen it. I've lived it. His pain echoed in the darkness of the alley, an emotional shout that reverberated through their very bones. Then we'll be careful, Alex interjected, a fierceness building inside him. We'll be smart, but we can't let fear control us. It's time for a change. I'm Danny, the boy finally offered, rubbing a hand across his face, revealing streaks of grime that matched the fear in his eyes. I know people who've had enough. But they're scared. If you really want to help, you have to reach them. You have to guide them. The way Danny spoke, the raw urgency behind his words set Samantha's heart racing. She thought of her own silence, the years of watching others quietly suffer. What if this was her moment to break free? She looked to Alex, seeking strength, and saw the unwavering determination reflected back at her. Okay, Danny, she said, a fire igniting in her chest. Let us do this. Show us where to find them. But just as they made a plan, a distant rumble of discontent echoed from the street outside the alley, another wave of chaos crashing, and Samantha's heart plummeted. The fire of her certainty flickered with the doubts of her unwilling retreat into uncertainty. What could she offer in the face of such ruin? Danny, sensing her wavering resolve, stepped forward, his tone softening. You have a voice, Samantha. Use it. Just remember you're not alone anymore. She took a moment to let his words sink in. There was power in collective voices, a reminder of why she had come. She looked at Alex again, his supportive presence grounding her as he nodded slowly, urging her onward without saying a word. Together, they started moving, stepping out of the shadows and into the brighter chaos of the street. The sounds of unrest balled up around them, but instead of retreating, they pressed forward. Side by side, they began searching faces in the crowd, seeking out the lost, the voiceless, those who would rally behind a newfound message. Suddenly, claps of frustration erupted nearby. A group of protesters clashed with law enforcement, the tension in the air almost palpable. Samantha felt her pulse quicken. What if they don't listen? She thought, anxiety rippling through her. But there wasn't time for hesitation. Let us go, Alex urged, gripping Sam's hand tighter, propelling them toward the gathering storm. This is our chance. Samantha squared her shoulders, her breath steadying. Together, she whispered, echoing their earlier promise. They took their first steps toward the crowd, ready to confront fear with a new resilience. But as they reached the chaos, a siren pierced the air, sharp and ominous, cutting through the tension and signaling that the fight had only just begun. Would their combined strength be enough to break through the noise, or would they find themselves swallowed whole by a society that feared change? Samantha's heart raced as they drew closer to the flashpoint of chaos. The crowd surged with uncertainty, some faces set in determination, while others twisted in fear. She felt the heat of the moment, the energy pulsing vibrantly around her. The raw desperation in the air was infectious. Alex squeezed her hand, grounding her even as the world seemed to whirl. In the front, a man shouted slogans of defiance. Their anger spurred a violent response from the police, who advanced with shields and batons raised high. Without thinking, Samantha stepped forward, her chest rising and falling rapidly as the reality of what lay before her became all-consuming. "Wait." Danny grasped at her arm, urgency flashing in his eyes. "Are you sure about this?" We have to," she gasped, pulling free from his grip. Staring ahead, she saw the glimmer of strength within the fury around her, a fire that echoed her own longing for change. "Or we might just let this moment pass." The guy on the speaker shouted again, rallying those around him. Their voices swelled, forming a symphony of resistance. It resonated deeply within Samantha. She glanced back at Danny, whose expression shifted from concern to admiration, and she inhaled sharply. "I'm ready," she declared, though she wasn't entirely sure what that meant yet. She stepped into the light, adrenaline propelling her forward. "Everyone," she shouted. It was far from a whisper, and she was surprised at the power behind her voice. The crowd paused, heads turning her way. A moment brimming with potential hung in the air. She felt vulnerable, yet invigorated. "We cannot fight alone, we need each other." As her words settled over the street, she could see the doubt etched on some faces. Did they believe her? Was she just another voice in a wave of noise? But she quickly fought against that, fueling her fire with every thought of pain and injustice that had filled her life until now. "Look around. We've all got reasons to stand here. To fight. It's not just one of us, it's all of us." Danny was at her side, his eyes wide, and Alex, steadfast with his presence, began to echo her sentiments. "Yeah, together, we're stronger." The energy shifted, the murmurs grew louder, and then, slowly, people began to nod, their faces softening from hardened resolve into something akin to hope. It was a small shift, but it was there. But just as momentum surged, an officer in full gear stepped forward, eyes focused on Samantha. "Get back," he barked, raising a baton that glinted dangerously in the fading light. A wave of fear rolled through the crowd. Panic gripped some as they stepped back, but Samantha lifted her chin, defiance burning in her chest. "No, we're not backing down." "Are you crazy?" Danny hissed, but even he could feel the swell of bravery rising around them. And at that moment, Samantha saw the flickers of strength igniting in the eyes of bystanders. They were less afraid and more emboldened, staring past the threat ahead. But that fleeting confidence was like a flame flickering in a storm. Could it survive? Then, the sirens blared louder. The police line advanced, controlling the crowd with rising hostility. But amidst the noise, she had found her voice. Could it be enough? The world around them felt like it was teetering on the edge. What if they don't listen? She thought again, heart pounding. But the whispers of solidarity began to rise louder and clearer with each passing second. "Who's with us?" Danny shouted, his voice breaking through the air, rallying people around them. Had they truly found a way to be heard together? As they clenched together in their resolve, Samantha's heart surged with hope. Could she truly be a catalyst for change? Their destiny now stood on the fragile precipice of unity or chaos. And in that electric moment, with the police near, she wondered, would they find their strength in numbers, or would it all unravel before her very eyes? The tension hung thick in the air, like a storm waiting to break. Samantha felt her heart thrumming in time with the shouts of the crowd. She locked eyes with Danny, who was still processing the shift around them. "We can't waver now," she urged him, sensing the fragile unity beginning to form. "Okay," he nodded sharply, and for a brief moment, she saw admiration shining back at her. It fueled her fire even more. "Together, As the officer moved toward her, the anger on his face was unmistakable. But just behind him, she caught sight of something else. Fear mingled with determination in the eyes of the people. She turned to the crowd, her voice stronger than before. "You all want change. Together we can push through this." A ripple of agreement surged through the group, battling the panic. She glanced at Alex, his brows drawn tightly together as he scanned the scene. "Can we do this?" he asked, doubt creeping into his voice. "Yes, we have to believe," Samantha replied, urgency pulsing in her words. "This is our moment." But then, chaos erupted. A flash of movement caught her eye as another officer brandished his baton above his head. Instinctively, she stepped back, her heart racing faster. Fear coursed through the crowd, the collective gasp almost deafening. She felt the swelling surge of adrenaline as they began to pull away. "Stand your ground," Danny shouted, leaning forward, his voice an anchor against the rising tide of uncertainty. "Please, don't let fear take control," Samantha cried, raising her hands as if to catch the wavering spirits around her. "Fear is exactly what they want. We're powerful together." Something clicked in the crowd. An older woman with tear-streaked cheeks broke through the shrinking formation to stand beside Samantha, her shaking hands forming fists. "I'm tired of being quiet. We will not back down." That one voice sparked others. "No more silence," someone shouted, and a smile broke across Samantha's face as she felt the energy shifting back. It was a chain reaction. People began stepping forward, bolstered by the sheer force of their shared humanity. They were facing the police, who advanced with grim expressions, but the crowd stood steady, ready to transform fear into something stronger hope. The energy began to swell again, filling the air with the potential for real change. But just as the atmosphere thickened with renewed resolve, the blare of sirens pierced through the tension. More police officers arrived, the crescent of their formation tightening, making it clear they intended to assert control. "Stay together," Alex urged, but even his voice wavered now, the weight of approaching storm clouding their unity. To Samantha's heart skipped a beat. The moment was fragile, crumbling under the weight of impending confrontation. "We can't let it end here." She didn't know how they could hold the line against the threat of violence, but she had to try. "What do we do?" Then, unexpectedly, a young boy no more than 12 burst through the line of protesters. His arms were thrown wide, and despite his fear, he shouted with the voice of an angel, "You can't scare us. We're here for our rights." Samantha felt a swell of emotion rise in her throat as the boy's bravery echoed through the tense air. This was the spark needed, the embodiment of what they were fighting for. The crowd responded, voices rising above the chaos, chanting, "We are here. We are here." Would they maintain this newfound strength? Just as the air vibrated with the power of their collective voices, Samantha caught sight of a police officer moving closer. She couldn't shake the feeling something monumental was about to happen. Could a child's courage be the catalyst for their transformation? Together, she whispered, hoping it would carry them into the unknown. But in this tightening moment, one question lingered. What would it take for their unity to turn into real change? Samantha's eyes darted to the advancing police officer, his expression a mask of authority and anger. The crowd felt it shift around her. A pregnant pause ran through the air, hearts pounding, breaths held. She knew they needed to act fast. This was no time for fear, it was a moment for courage. "Don't move," she shouted, grabbing the attention of those nearest. "Stay right here. Remember why we're here." She clasped her hands together, hoping her voice would resonate through the fear that creeped in. The young boy, still standing bravely in front, locked eyes with her. His determination was a beacon amidst the rising chaos. "I'm not scared," he yelled again, and his voice was sharp, slicing through the tension. One by one, others stepped forward, like flowers breaking through concrete. A tall woman with a vibrant red scarf shouted, "We won't let you intimidate us." Her words echoed across the gathering, igniting spirits like kindling in a fire. "Look at us." Danny raised his arms, embracing the crowd. "We are not alone. There are more of us than them. This is our place. Fight for it." Samantha felt hope unfurling within her. People began holding hands or linking arms, creating a protective line. Their collective heartbeat unified their resolve electric. But then the officer, thick-set and towering, stepped forward. Disperse now, or we will take action. His baton was raised, a blatant threat in the face of newfound unity. The crowd faltered. A collective breath was held. She saw the fear flicker in Alex's eyes, uncertainty creeping back in. What do we do? He whispered, his voice barely audible. The boy mustered every ounce of courage within him, his small body trembling but still standing firm. Don't be afraid. They don't own us. We are powerful when we stand together. Samantha's heart swelled. She turned to the faces around her. The mix of bewilderment and fury reflected back at her. The people were scared, yes, but they were also brave. Listen to him, she yelled, getting up on her toes. We cannot let them drown our voices out. This is our stand. This is our fight. As fear and defiance collided, something shifted within the crowd. The officer hesitated as more voices joined in, rising in a chorus that filled the darkening sky. Together, together. The chant surged, crashing against the oppressive weight of the police presence. Samantha's cheeks flushed with the heat of passion, the fire in her chest igniting a fierce pride. The melody of togetherness swept through her, lifting her spirit along with those around her, transforming fear into a powerful wave of resistance. But just as it seemed they might overwhelm that barrier of authority, chaos seized the moment. A surge of police rushed forward, batons swinging. The visceral clash of voices met the crack of force. She felt the panic ripple through the front line. Hold your ground, Danny shouted again, but the surge pushed the crowd back. Samantha's heart raced, her palms clammy as she searched for the boy's face again. She couldn't lose sight of him, not now. Hold on, she cried, her voice desperate, trying to anchor them back to what mattered. Could they ride this wave of voice, or would they lose everything in that tumultuous clash? The boy, aglow with bravery, remained fixed in her mind. As the police advanced, a sudden realization crashed over Samantha. The real fight was more than just keeping the crowd in formation. It was about moments of unity that could change lives. Now, she yelled, together, we stand. Bracing for impact, her body tensed, every fiber of her being ready to push back against the tide. Would their courage withstand the storm about to break over them? Did they have what it took to turn this moment of fear into something greater? The crowd shifted, a churning mass of bodies and emotions, as Samantha felt the wave of police push forward. Her heart pounded like a drum, each beat a reminder of what was at stake. Danny's voice cut through the din, still urging them to hold firm. Beneath the chaos, she sensed the determination a pulse, a heartbeat echoed by the many who stood firm. Everyone link arms, Samantha shouted, her voice reaching over the ruckus. She turned and saw the young boy beside her stepping forward, his small hands grasping the arms of others around him. He was their anchor, an embodiment of fearlessness that encouraged solidarity. They formed a line, people gripping tightly, faces set with newfound resolve. Together, the chant came alive again, raw and urgent, rallying with every shout. The officers hesitated, surprised at the ground they were losing. But the moment was fragile. The officer leading the charge spoke again, his voice ice cold. This is your last warning. Disperse, or we will act. He swung his baton back and forth as though it were a weapon of fear and not an instrument of authority. Samantha looked around, her gaze locking on faces filled with fear and fury. We're not going anywhere, she said, the words steadying her heart. You can't take away our voices. And then the push came. A rush of momentum collided against them, a wall of uniforms crashing into their line. Samantha felt the impact, a jolt through her body, but she held fast. She could see the boy, still standing strong, shouting stay strong. Even as the weight of the line began to falter, the crowd began to sway, the resistance folding like flower petals in a whirlwind. Panic clawed at Samantha's throat. We need to hold, she yelled again. It became a taunt, a final plea against the tide. Suddenly, from the shadows, a figure caught her attention, a woman, maybe late 30s, who stood just behind the front lines. The red scarf around her neck flared as she grasped her hands tightly over her heart. Samantha felt a connection, a spark of understanding. The woman's eyes were misty with fear, yet lit with an inner fire that ignited something in Samantha. Help her, the woman cried out, pointing to a fellow protester who had lost her footing. Get her back up. In that moment, as the waves crashed against their formation, Personal bravery enveloped the crowd. They weren't just standing against oppression. They were lifting each other, pulling one another back from the brink of chaos. With renewed strength, Samantha yanked the woman's arm, drawing her back into the line. It was a chain reaction. People began helping one another, arms encircling those knocked down and lifting them back to their feet as they chanted. Their voices swelled, booming against the threat before them. She could feel the pulse of solidarity straight through her veins. But just as the tide of bravery surged forward, something in the crowd broke. The tension snapped. The moment suspended when the boy shouted again, "Don't back down. We are unstoppable." Just then, a flash of blue light flickered through the air, the police starting to advance, redirecting their tactics with a new ferocity. Samantha's breath quickened, a knot forming in her stomach. Would this be the breaking point, or would they harness this united strength to stand against them? As the gas canisters began to erupt around them, releasing thin clouds of smoke, Samantha braced for what might come next. What she didn't expect was the overwhelming wave of pain that surged with it, a challenge on her senses and resolve. That is when she realized the fight wasn't just about the voices. It was about the souls rising to be heard, to break free. And then, through the chaos, she spotted the boy again, rooted in place, holding his ground defiantly. In a moment of clarity, she understood it was up to her to turn this fear into something powerful, something to inspire the reluctant voices around her. Together, together, she roared, hoping for the magic that came from the shared battle cry. But would they find enough strength to combat the crushing force coming for them? Would her words fuel the courage needed in such a moment of vulnerability? The gas erupted, filling the air with a stinging haze that made Samantha's eyes water. She fought through the thick smoke, trying to find the boy who had rallied their spirits. Panic rippled through the crowd as fear mingled with confusion. Voices turned to shouts, and shouts became cries of despair. "Stay together," she screamed, her own voice barely piercing through the choking mist. She felt the weight of 1,000 hearts beating as one, but doubt began to creep in. What if their united front crumbled? What if they were too weak to withstand the force of their oppressors? Around her, she could see fear etched on the faces of the crowd. People stumbled, trying to catch their breath, trying to find a way forward. But within that chaos, Samantha spotted the young boy, still standing strong, calling for them to hold on. "Look at him," she shouted to those close enough to hear. "He is not giving up. We can't either." Her words sparked a flicker of hope in a few of them. She saw eyes lift, breaths deepen. Slowly, arms that had faltered began linking back together, hands grasping once more. There was a strength in their connection as their resolve shifted from fragile to fierce. Then, the officer's voice cut through the haze again, louder and angrier. "You're trespassing. Clear the area now, or we will use force." The threat hung heavy in the air, electric with danger. Samantha steadied herself, feeling the strength of the bodies around her. They were more than just individuals. They were a community, bonded by their shared experience. Her own voice, once shaky, now surged with passion. "We cannot be silenced. We are here for our rights. For everyone who has ever felt voiceless." The crowd echoed her, voices rising in defiance, drowning out their fears. The boy, standing firm, grinned as if he could feel the weight of their collective spirit pushing back against the oppressive force ahead. A glimmer of something shifted in the air, the fire of resistance igniting hearts. The smoke, thick as it was, couldn't snuff out that light. "Together. Resist," they cried, a wave of sound crashing against the police line. Samantha looked around, her heart racing. In this moment, vulnerability became strength. The crowd shifted forward a step, emboldened. They didn't just want to be heard. They needed to be seen to transform this overwhelming tide into a current of change. "Your fear is not our weakness." Every word she shouted became a shield for those around her, a battle cry that rallied the hesitant to step forward. "Our voices are our power." Suddenly, the boy broke through the line, right past the uncertain, and what happened next struck her like a bolt of lightning. He held out a small hand toward the officers, his face earnest and beautiful in its innocence. "We're not your enemy," he shouted, voice clear above the clamor. "We just want to be heard." Samantha felt her breath catch. A fierce wave of pride surged through her. This child, so small yet so brave, was changing the tide not just for himself, but for every voice that felt forgotten. She thought of the woman with the red scarf, the fear in her eyes that had transformed into strength in that moment. As the boy faced the officers, something shifted. The police hesitated. Just for a heartbeat. The energy in the air morphed. Uncertainty splintered their line. The crowd saw the shift, and with it, their confidence blossomed like a flower breaking through concrete. But would that moment be enough? Would they leverage the courage born of this child's audacity? As the officers tightened their grip on their weapons, Samantha's heart raced with anticipation and fear. What would happen next? Would the boy's bravery ignite a flame within others, leading them all to stand united? Or would this fragile moment of hope shatter under the weight of oppression? Only time would tell. The clash of voices echoed louder than the chaos surrounding them. Samantha felt her heart race as she watched the young boy, hands raised, face determined, courage radiating like a beacon. Would the police see the truth in his innocence? In that fleeting moment, the crowd paused, breaths held in anticipation. Stay united, Samantha called, her voice cutting through the noise, igniting the fire within the bystanders. Together, we are powerful. We deserve to be heard. Around her, tension rippled through the crowd, uncertainty and courage battling for supremacy. It felt like a scene from a movie, the kind where spirits rise against the odds, where the underdog triumphs. But this was real life, messy and raw. Danny stood next to her, his eyes full of fear but also fierce determination. We can't let fear drown us. If we stand together, we can turn this tide. His voice resonated with those nearby, each word pulling more of them into the collective strength of unity. Samantha felt it, the energy shifting, building. The moment of uncertainty had stretched long enough, and she sensed hope flickering. We're not here to fight, she shouted, her voice steady and fiery. We're here to demand change. Our silence ends now. The crowd began to echo her words, hesitant murmurs growing into shouts. Change. Change. We are here. The police line wavered. The expression of the lead officer shifted imperceptibly. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his features. And then, getting closer, the young boy's brave heart shone through as he cried out again. We're not your enemy. We just want to be heard. That heartfelt declaration itched the air, pulling everyone closer. Samantha marveled at this little giant of courage, the embodiment of hope. It set off a cascade. One voice turned into many, swelling, rising, surging like a mighty wave. Together, together, they chanted as if the rhythm would uplift them all. Samantha could feel the spirit of the crowd linking together, hearts pounding as one. Hope became an addictive high, and she joined in, her soul ignited. She thought of Alex, the street boy who had fought every day unapologetically. He stood resolutely beside her, eyes ablaze with panic, but also a determination to protect their newfound family. Don't back down, Danny shouted, his voice rallying every soul around him as if they needed reminding. This is our moment. This is our fight. Suddenly, as if summoned by the energy of their unity, a shift happened. The police hesitated further, whispering to one another, faltering. The crowd shifted forward slowly, the pulse of shared courage propelling them against the tide of authority. Hold fast, Samantha shouted, unwavering. We can do this. Show them the power of our truth. And then it happened. A gust of wind blew through the area, carrying with it the voices raised in unison, drowning out the threats and fears. Together, together. Look, someone cried out from behind. Heads turned, and they saw a line of neighbors and community members emerging from side streets, drawn by the sound of courage being summoned. A mix of tears and smiles swept through Samantha as she realized this was not just a battle for voices in the crowd. It was a community reclaiming its strength. United, we rise. Someone at the back called, and they surged forward, their bravery carving a path through fear. Samantha felt it, an electric current running through her, an undeniable shift in the landscape. The police line looked less like a wall and more like a crack in the facade of control. The boy stood firm in front, a small guardian of hope, and in that single moment, his courage seemed to symbolize every voice that had ever felt overlooked. The moment was teetering on the edge, and she understood this wasn't about fear anymore. This was about defiance and love. The crowd felt an unseen force lifting them, And in that breath, she stepped forward. "We want change. We want understanding," she shouted, her voice stronger than she ever thought possible. The response came back a resounding roar. Change. She could see the police struggling to maintain their grip, hesitation blooming like wildflowers in the cracks of their authority. "Stand strong." Danny's voice rang clear, inspiring others to hold fast. Samantha locked eyes with Alex, who nodded, understanding everything without a word exchanged. They were not alone. They never would be again. One police officer raised his baton, and the crowd braced, but another officer stepped forward, looking back at the little boy. He paused, hesitation allowing doubt to waver in their ranks. "Let us turn our anger into empathy. Let us listen and hear the cries for justice," Samantha boldly declared. She took a step toward the officer, arms wide open, inviting instead of confronting, prayerful yet powerful. The tension hung in the air, vibrating with hope. The crowd held their breath, waiting to see the outcome. Together, they embodied change in every heartbeat, refusing to be silenced as the night spread its wings above them. And then, the boy stepped up beside her again, his tiny frame filling the vast space between them and the police. "Please, just listen. We just want to be heard." Slowly, the officer lowered his baton, the hardened front beginning to crack. The realization hit Samantha like a bolt of lightning. This was it, the moment that could change everything. Together, she whispered, her voice swelling with determination. They were stronger as a unit, and finally, they would be heard. They would not fall back. They would not retreat. This was their moment, a spark igniting a change that echoed beyond the night. Together, they would rise. If you believe in the power of change, now it's time to take action. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and fuel our mission. Comment below your thoughts and feelings about this inspiring ending. And share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful transformation. You need to show your support today. Don't wait not even one more second to spread the word.